By making offerings to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, this inspires cultivation of goodness. Being moved to make offerings and recite their names, such as these actions, definitely means practicing diligently according to the teachings. Cultivation means correcting all our wrong behaviors in life, at work, in how we deal with others and ourselves. This is what we call practice. He did it, and there was a response. Sometimes, at night, they might dream of the Buddha's body, shining like yellow crystal, radiating great light like Mount Sumeru. His response was an experience that happened, specifically, in a dream. From the scripture, it is shown that he painted an image of the Buddha with care and devotion, and after completing this painting, an offering was made specifically to honor the newly created Buddha image. Buddha Tathagata, king of freedom jeweled mirror. Because he made offerings with such respect, he was able to see the Buddha appear in his dream. His sincere filial piety moved the Buddha to bestow blessings upon him. Tell Guanyin you will soon be born into a family. Feel hunger and cold, so be serious. This was to let him know that his mother would very soon return, in person, to the human world. She had escaped the evil realms because he offered considerable wealth, carefully created artistic images, and made offerings with deep and sincere respect. The merit he accumulated allowed his mother to leave the hell realm. Her serious sins were also eliminated, but she still had some remaining karma, so before long she would be born into your family. This child, upon birth, could already speak, quite extraordinary. Yes, this child could talk right when they were born. We've seen this in our world. Some babies can speak at birth. They recall a past life. In Buddhism, this kind of situation is referred to as a miscarriage or aborted birth. This is actually quite a long story. When the mother was pregnant, the one she was carrying was actually someone else. This person had a very strained relationship with the mother. What for? To collect a debt. This debt-collecting spirit wasn't owed much, just enough to make her suffer for 10 months and then lead her on. The baby died as soon as it was born. Guanyin Bodhisattva's mother borrowed her body to revive. That's called a miscarriage. Here, the spirit, the soul, left the body, then Guanyin Bodhisattva's soul entered. That's what happened. She didn't go through the hardship of being pregnant for those 4 months, so she remembered everything very clearly and distinctly. That's how it works. For most people, this period in the womb is called the suffering of gestation. During those 4 months, it's like being in hell, enduring immense pain, and all memories of past lives are completely forgotten. This sort of thing is understandable. We've seen some children before, when they are 2 or 3 years old, who are incredibly bright and clever. When Dao Ji was 4, he got ill. A high fever left him disabled. He was mentally impaired. He couldn't remember anything at all. Just think about it, everyone. If a single serious illness can make you lose all your memory, then what about 10 months in the womb? That's something we can understand. It makes sense that we completely forget everything from our previous life. I have a unique perspective because if someone hasn't suffered like this, their mind remains clear and sharp. Well, it turned out that this really did happen in his family. Later, a child was born in the household, and before 3 days had passed, the child spoke, weeping sorrowfully to Lady Guang's mother, the family's servant. Gave birth to a child, and this child was actually, indeed, the firstborn of Lady Guang's mother. Just as the Buddha had told her in her dream. Perfect match. So, when the child was 3 days old, upon seeing Lady Guang, the child paid respects to her, nodding its head in greeting. We know a 3-day-old baby can't move. But this baby knew how to nod and show respect. The expression was one of deep sorrow. The child told Lady Guang that due to karma of life and death, the consequences of past actions are born, disrespecting her mother without guidance, taking the lives of 9 animals, and separating from the Buddha, she had fallen into great hells. About her. She died, and though it hadn't been long, the suffering and punishment she endured in hell were immense. We often say that a day feels as long as a year. This also shows that time isn't actually real. It's not a physical thing. Time is our abstract concept. In ancient Chinese anecdotal novels like Tang Dynasty Story, The Dream of the Yellow Millet. In the dream, time passes very quickly. Yellow millet, Xiaoming. When you cook millet porridge, it cooks really quickly, much faster than regular rice. When the porridge was ready, he napped and dreamed. I woke up, the porridge isn't ready. This time is short. Not short few minutes, but in his dream, decades had passed. So, you see, the time difference is huge. Hardly any time at all. But for someone truly suffering in the depths of hell, it could very easily feel as though several great kalpas have already gone by. That feeling is real for them. It truly feels like an incredibly long time. 9 generations of livestock mourn their fate. This is just what we were talking about earlier. A perception of time and space isn't the same. In hell, the experience feels like an extremely, extremely long time. But it's just like how celestial beings see us. If you look at us from the perspective of the two-seater heaven, 100 years in the human world a person living to 100 seems like a very long time, but in the Sutra heaven, it's only a few hours. If you calculate it using 24 hours, then a quarter of a day is 6 hours. 100 years in the human world is just 6 hours in the heaven of Sutra. For beings in Sutra heaven, time passes quickly. 100 years have gone by in the human realm. So in our world, these few dozen days have been, in essence, the same as several great disasters in hell. It blocks the great hell, not the ordinary hell. The sins committed are too deep and too heavy. When I was young, I hadn't started Buddhism. I also like eating meat. The karma I created was heavier than most people's. During the War of Resistance, I often went out hunting. So after reading the Bodhisattva Sutra, I was terrified. It's truly frightening. Just count the games. I didn't dare eat meat anymore. I realized the sins I'd committed were really serious. When I was a kid, my dad loved hunting. So we'd often go up the mountain with the adults to hunt, and there'd be wild game brought home every day, from time to time. I went hunting for 3 years. From 16, I started hunting when I was 16, then 17, 18, and 19. So my shooting was almost always spot on. I hardly ever needed to aim. I just had the knack for it. I'd fire at least 20 rounds a day. Even if I wasn't hunting, I'd still practice. My father was in the military. Back then, during the war with the Japanese, he was in charge of military affairs and weapons, so we had loads of guns at home. It is accumulating karma. He makes you practice every day. Which kid doesn't like playing with guns? We were playing with real guns. Being a good shot comes from practicing every single day. How could you get good without practice? You have to practice. It's the same with anything. You have to really focus and stick with it for the long haul. That's why my shooting was so accurate. But the karma I created from it was pretty heavy. Back then I didn't know. But later, after I started studying Buddhism and reading the Bodhisattva Sutra, it really made my hair stand on end. The way my father died was exactly as it's described in the sutra. When my father passed away, he went mad. If he saw a mountain, he'd run up it. If he saw water, he'd try to dive in. It was exactly as described, and I saw it all with my own eyes. When we went up the mountain, it was to hunt, to shoot wild animals. And in the water, we used yellow explosives to blast fish. After the dynamite was dropped, thousands, even tens of thousands of fish floated up. We'd say the karma from this is massive. Hunting on land, you'd only get a few animals, but in the river, the big fish were unbelievable. You know, we used to do this sort of thing all the time. I know that this sin is very, very serious. Taking lives leads to a short life. My father died 45. Later, after starting Buddhism, someone said your lifespan won't go beyond 45. That's why I'm dedicated to Buddhism. My time was set until 45. The year I turned 45, I had lung cancer, and with just over a month left, I didn't see a doctor or take any medicine because I thought to myself, my time was up. Doctors can treat illnesses, but they can't change your fate. So, for a whole month, I just chanted Buddha's name and prayed to be reborn in the Pure Land. After a month of this, my illness naturally got better. Later on, 1 year at the Renwang Dharma Assembly in Taiwan, I ran into Kanzu Haifu, an old friend of mine. After seeing me, he was pleased and said, "All these years you've been teaching the Dharma and spreading Buddhism. You've accumulated great merit." He said, "You originally didn't have blessings from the Buddha and were destined for a short life. But now not only do you have the Buddha's blessings, you also have a long life. All of this is the result of the blessings from spreading the Dharma and benefiting others in this lifetime. I never asked for a long life. I just stopped living for myself after gaining understanding and awakening. Everything is for the Dharma and for all sentient beings. It is the induction after all. As for myself, I'm always ready to go. There's not the slightest attachment to this world." So why does my body stay in this world? Buddha of all living beings. If sentient beings need it, if the Dharma needs it, then I'll stay a few more days. If sentient beings no longer want it and the Dharma is no longer needed, I'd leave without any attachment. This is the mindset I've had while still alive. I'd be delighted to go to the Pure Land a day earlier and be close to Amitabha Buddha. So, this is the continuation of karmic actions and lifespan. If I hadn't studied Buddhism, my retribution would be a long life in hell, because you bound by your karma, the karmic ties of birth and death. You have to bear the consequences yourself. How could you possibly escape from that? The mother of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva was simply very kind-hearted. But not only are we not as kind, we also create negative karma and take lives. We've killed too much. Next, it says, "Thanks to your blessing and the power of the Buddha, I was able to be reborn, but as a lowly person, with a short life, only 13 years, and then I fell into the evil realms again. Is there any way to help me break free from this confusion?" This is saying that during those 6 years, thanks to your sincere and generous offerings and your diligent and dedicated cultivation of merit, I was able to escape hell and be reborn as a human. But being reborn as a human meant being born into a lowly status, as a servant's child in someone else's household, and with a short life, only 13 years. After those 13 years, I still had to fall into the evil realms again. So she told this to him, asking, "Do you have any way to save me?" When Guanyin Bodhisattva heard about his mother's situation, he choked up. His compassion grew greatly. He thought, "This is my mother. Does she know her karma? More than I know." Guanyin Bodhisattva had heard about this in advance. In a dream the Buddha had told him, and now it had all come true. He realized for certain that this was his mother, who had been reborn in the human world. Hearing her speak of these things, he wondered about her lifespan. She was only 13 years old. I just felt even more that she was truly pitiful. So I asked her, "Since you are my mother reborn, you should know what sins you committed yourself, shouldn't you? To have fallen into this mistaken path." For this, the eldest daughter is suffering retribution for the 2 karmas of killing and slander. If not for receiving blessings, the old retribution would be hard to escape. Since it's the karma of this life, why has she fallen to the lower realms? This makes it clear. Before being reborn, she took pleasure in killing and taking lives. She really liked it. As was mentioned earlier, she especially enjoyed it and committed far too many acts of killing and harming. The retribution for these karmic debts, the payback for those wrongdoings, truly hasn't even arrived yet. Falling into hell like this, it's all because of these sins. The 5 precepts set by Buddha include killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and sexual sin. If you commit them without taking the precepts, you will still be guilty. You can't say it's not a sin. These are the 4 grave offenses. Regardless of whether you know about Buddhism or not, or whether you are familiar with it, if you commit these acts, they're extremely serious karmic offenses. It depends on what kind of mind you use when you create the karma, and the consequences and sins you incur will be very different. If someone commits these acts willingly and knowingly, then the karmic offense is even heavier. Killing or slandering. Usually, it's like this. When good people or virtuous practitioners explain the teachings, he doesn't believe them. When others try to advise him, not only does he refuse to accept it, he talks back and even abuses them. If we tell him Kitagaba Sutra stories, he shakes his head and calls it a scam. Now, this is slandering the Buddha and the Dharma, and that's an even heavier offense. So, is it these 2 types of karmic offenses that lead to the suffering of hell? If it weren't for the blessings from her daughter's good deeds, she would have had no way to escape. The suffering in hell was more than enough for her to endure. And after she's finished paying for her sins in hell, she still has to fall into the realms of hungry ghosts or animals to repay her debts. Repay a life debt? For every life you've taken, you have to pay it back. If you owe money, you have to repay money. If you owe a life, you have to repay with your life. In the past, Master Shigao in China had to repay his life debts twice. This is recorded in his biography. Both times, it was because he accidentally killed someone, not on purpose, but it was still a life lost. He must repay debt. Twice he was killed by others. Karma and retribution. There's never the slightest mistake. For the sake of awakening, if you can't be reborn in the Western Pure Land and escape the cycle of the 6 realms, then in other words, all the karmic debts and grudges we've accumulated with sentient beings in this and past lives, all of them must be repaid. How could anyone bear that? In which lifetime could you ever pay it all back? We really need to wake up. Whether you practice Buddhism or not, this is the reality. No one can avoid it. No one can escape it. Once we truly understand these important facts and the profound truth, the only way to save ourselves, to help all sentient beings, and to resolve the grudges and karma we've accumulated over countless eons, is to seek rebirth in the Pure Land. After being reborn in the Pure Land, we'll have the ability to sincerely make offerings and wholeheartedly give blessings each and every day to help all sentient beings, and to dedicate all the merit we've accumulated to our karmic creditors and enemies from time without beginning. We can help them break through confusion, gain enlightenment, and be freed from suffering to find happiness. Only then can we truly resolve and dissolve the karmic debts and grudges from time immemorial. There is absolutely no other way, except for this one, simply. That's why the Buddhas and Tathagatas encourage us to give rise to the body-mind, to single-mindedly recite Amitabha Buddha's name, and to aspire for rebirth in the Pure Land. This is the true path. Now, let's look at the next part of the sutra. Light Mother asked, "What is the nature of the suffering and retribution in hell?" Light Mother was also very curious, and she wanted to find out for herself what it's really like in hell. The answer was, the suffering there is so extreme, it's unbearable. After centuries, it only gets worse. Of course, even if he tried to explain it to her, could he ever finish telling it all? He couldn't possibly finish. It's just too much suffering. The suffering is so intense that it's hard to even bear talking about it. 100 years, you can't fully tell it. His mother fell into hell. He felt it. When Light's mother heard this, she wept bitterly, her tears and sobs filling the air, and she made a vow to the heavens, "May my mother never again fall into hell, and even if she has committed 5 times the sins she did at 13, may she still be shown the path to liberation." At this moment, the devoted daughter of light made a great and heartfelt vow for her beloved mother, moved by deep compassion and hope. Above all, she wished that her mother could escape the suffering and torment of the evil realms. It was originally known that her mother, after reaching the age of 13, was destined to fall even further, to continue enduring pain and hardship. The daughter's vow was a sincere plea for her mother's deliverance from such a fate. She looked up to the endless, vast sky and prayed, "May all the Buddhas and compassionate beings bless me, and hear the great vow I make for my mother,